The US supply of diesel fuel is critically low and dropping, and unfortunately for US consumers, this crisis is likely to get much worse before it gets any better. So we need to be preparing for fuel shortages and also for higher prices and shortages throughout the economy for a variety of goods, because diesel fuel is critical for transportation and distribution. Now, I put out a video on this topic a few days ago about how there's only a 25-day supply of diesel fuel remaining in the US, but since then there have been a few updates in this story, and also, based on some of the comments I got on that video, I think I need to clarify a few things about this shortage and about the diesel supply. Several people in the comments seem to feel that I was being misleading by stating that there is a 25-day supply of fuel left. And so just to be clear, that does not mean that in 25 days we are going to run out of fuel. It just means that based on current stockpiles and current levels of demand and consumption, the amount of fuel that we have is sufficient to meet 25 days of demand. US oil refineries are still making fuel, so as the fuel gets consumed, it is being replaced. But we are seeing the level of supply dropping, and that means that it's not being replaced as fast as it is being consumed. And on top of that, refineries in the US at the moment, they're maxed out. They can't refine any diesel out of crude oil any faster than they already are. So you can see how this could become a big problem. And that 25-day supply number, that's actually from back on October 21st. That's 8 days ago. But we won't get the next update on supply from the EIA until November 2nd. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. And in that video that I put out a few days ago, I certainly was not trying to mislead anybody into believing that we were going to run out of diesel fuel in 25 days. But here's the other side of that coin. A 25-day supply of diesel fuel is very tight. So much so that in that warning that we got the other day from Mansfield Energy, the fuel distribution company, they stated that their trucks were having to visit multiple terminals just to find fuel to distribute. And when you look at this data from the EIA, you can see that the supply has never once in the past 30 years dipped below 20 days worth of supply. So if we start getting close to that level, that means that there is already a huge shortage. Prices are probably going to spike and distribution is going to be affected in a very big way. And if you think that all this talk about an energy crisis is just hyperbole and people like me are blowing this out of proportion, consider that New England's largest utility company, Eversource Energy, has now asked President Biden to implement emergency measures to prevent fuel shortages in the Northeast. Joseph Nolan, the CEO of Eversource, wrote the following in a letter to the president. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission has acknowledged for many months that New England will not have sufficient natural gas to meet power supply needs for the region in the event of a severe cold spell this winter. This represents a serious public health and safety threat. Now, he mentioned natural gas specifically. So what does that have to do with diesel fuel? Well, it's part of an overall energy crisis. And as the US has been exporting more natural gas abroad, especially to the EU, that means that supplies in the US are getting a lot tighter. And here's the thing about fuels like natural gas and diesel. If one runs out, the other will get consumed more. A lot of the power plants in the US are actually set up to be able to burn gas or distillate fuels, including diesel and fuel oil. So if they run out of natural gas, they switch. And that means if there is a gas shortage in New England, demand for diesel could increase in a very big way. So this is all part of the same issue. And speaking of New England, let's take a look at the EIA data for diesel fuel prices. You can see here that pretty much across the board, diesel prices are rising. In most regions of the US, the number is somewhere between $1.50 and $1.75 year-over-year increase. But in New England, the price of diesel year-over-year is up more than $2.10. So that region is experiencing the worst spike in diesel prices at the moment, but there's a lot of factors that lead me to believe prices are going to continue moving much higher in all of these regions before 2022 is over. First of all, we've got China. They are reopening their economy after lockdowns due to the COVID-0 policy. So once their industry comes back online, that is going to mean more demand for a variety of fuels, including diesel and natural gas. And remember, energy markets are international markets. So when more fuel gets consumed in China, that can lead to higher prices and tighter supply around the world, including here in the US. Second, refineries are at nearly 100% of their capacity here in the US. Now, hopefully, nothing will happen to any of our refineries, but when you're operating under such tight market conditions, it might be unwise to assume that there's not going to be any issues at any of these plants. And we have very little room for any type of mishap because, again, there are no extra plants to pick up any kind of slack. One major storm, a fire, an explosion, any of these things could throw a major wrench in the US fuel distribution system. And they do happen. Just a couple days ago, there was a major explosion at a Taiwan oil refinery. It's a dangerous business refining these highly flammable fuels, and these things do happen. But when you need every last refinery you have and every last drop of fuel, this is a major source of fragility in the system. And finally, I mentioned this in the last video, but it bears repeating. The EU embargo on Russian oil, along with the G7's plan to place a price cap on Russian oil, will be going into effect starting on December 5th. Analysts at S&P Global have forecast that this may disrupt as much as 1.5 million barrels per day of Russian oil exports. And to make matters worse, the EU is currently importing a large amount of Russian diesel fuel. It makes up more than 40% of their imports, and that is all going to go bye-bye on December 5th. So the Europeans are going to continue bidding up and buying US natural gas, and pretty soon that same situation will apply to diesel fuel as well. So expect fuel shortages, expect higher prices, expect this to exacerbate this current inflation problem that we have, and get prepared. Fill up your fuel tanks, get some extra fuel on hand, and if there's anything you're going to need to buy over the next several months, durable goods, food, long shelf life items of any sort, if you have the extra cash, buy them now because they're probably going to be a lot more expensive in the coming months if they are available at all. And if you're experiencing fuel shortages or rising prices in your area, I love to get on-the-ground feedback from all of you, so wherever you may be, leave a comment down below and give us an update from your neck of the woods. And with that being said, thanks for watching, everyone. Stay safe, happy stacking, and I will catch you next time. Smart Silver Stacker, out.